can you comment on 1 Corinthians 7:18 and 19, and what is meant here in regards to circumcision as to a Gentile believer? Great question. All right, okay, so 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Let me just go to that passage. Okay, so what is Paul saying? So the two passages in question, 18 and 19. Was anyone called while circumcised? Let him not become uncircumcised. Was anyone called while uncircumcised? Let him not be circumcised. Circumcision is nothing, and uncircumcision is nothing, but keeping the commandments of God is what matters. Let each one remain in the same calling in which he was called. Now, part of the challenge here is that the term circumcised was very often a term that meant someone who had converted to the Jewish faith. Okay, and I'm using that term specifically here. Okay, because we have to understand that before Christianity came along, before Jesus came and went to the cross and all that good stuff, there was a debate within Judaism as to what a person had to do in order to become a convert. All right, and that was a really big and important question. What must somebody do to become a Jew? What do they have to do? So you're going from Gentile, being some kind of a Gentile, non-Jew, right? And what was required to become a Jew? And there was debate. And this is completely outside of the context of what Christianity was suggesting that they had to do. So let me share my screen with you, because I just want to point out what this text is all about. I think this is a really important passage that we need to take a look at. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. And I did some research on this, so this is a great question. Let me pull this up. All right. So here we have it, and let's see if I can't. Let's see. Will it do it? Oh yeah, and we needed to do. I know I can do this. Let's see here. From current slide. There we go. All right. So the first century rabbinic debate of proselytes circumcision. All right. So of course, here's what we have in Acts chapter 15. Unless you are circumcised according to the custom of Moses, you cannot be saved. But some of the sect of the Pharisees who believed rose up, saying, it is necessary to circumcise them and command them to keep the law of Moses. All right. So within the context of Judaism, not Christianity, but the context of Judaism, there was a debate, especially in Hellenistic type Judaism, that the Hellenistic Judaism, so think of Alexandria, for example, they would admit Gentiles after having undergone the rite of baptism, that is regeneration by living water. This is according to Siblings. And the text was, wash your whole stature clean from impurity in running streams, and with hands uplifted to heaven, ask for forgiveness for your doing. Then the worship of God will heal gross impiety. Now, it's important to understand that by worship, they didn't just mean, singing praise songs or listening to your favorite Christian station. Worship was associated with the study of God's word. Very important to understand. But they said that you needed to wash, you needed to be baptized. This is a Jewish text, not a Christian text. And so Rabbi Joshua, he asserted that the baptismal rite rendered a person a full proselyte without circumcision, as Israel, when receiving the law, required no initiation other than the purgative bath. All right, this is super important stuff. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer, who's in a more strict camp, more strict interpretation, he makes circumcision a condition for the admission of a proselyte. Wow, that's a big difference, all right? And you can find this at jewishencyclopedia.com. All right, it's very important. All right, so let's think about circumcision. God is talking about circumcision a lot in the Bible, and most of the time he's not talking about, snipping your male part, okay? So we see in Deuteronomy 10, therefore circumcise the foreskin of your heart and be stiff-necked no longer. Circumcise yourselves to the Lord and remove the foreskin of your heart, men of Judah, or my wrath will break out because of your evil deeds. That's Jeremiah 4:4. And then we see what Paul says in Romans chapter 4. Does this blessedness then come upon the circumcised only, or upon the uncircumcised also? For we say that faith was accounted to Abraham for righteousness. How then was it accounted? Not while circumcised, but while uncircumcised. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of the faith, which he had while still uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all those who believe, though they are uncircumcised, that righteousness might be imputed to them also. Paul's making a very strong case that circumcision is not the first thing you do. Circumcision came after they believed. It came after. And so, as we saw on the previous slide, there was a debate within Judaism, not Christianity, but in Judaism. The more lenient, the Hellenistic interpretation often said, you just need to be baptized, lift your hands to praise to God, and you're good to go. Whereas the more stringent school said, no, 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 no. You've got to be snipped first. All right, so let's come back now to the Jerusalem Council. So we have the declaration. Now, therefore, why do you test God by putting a yoke on the neck of the disciples, which we neither our fathers nor we were able to bear? Therefore, I judge that we should not trouble those from among the Gentiles who are turning to God. For Moses, that's Torah. Like again, Moses and Torah, these are synonymous in other languages. For example, in Hungarian, when they say, first Moses, second Moses, third Moses, they're talking about the Torah. All right, they're not talking about the man. They're talking about the writings that are associated with this guy named Moses. So for Moses, or the Torah, has had throughout many generations those who preach him, or it, Torah, in every city, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath. So what are they saying? Look, let's not put this thing where people first have to take on circumcision and they have to become really good at the Torah first. Let's follow the more lenient Jewish thought, which is be baptized, turn away from your paganism, and with your hands lifted in praise to God, that'll take care of any gross impropriety. So, again, according to JewishEncyclopedia.com, the more rigorous seem to have been inclined to insist upon such converts observing the entire law, with the exception of the reservations and modifications explicitly made on their behalf, and the more lenient were ready to accord them full equality with Jews as soon as they had solemnly forsworn idolatry. This is exactly what we have in Acts chapter 15, the whole Jerusalem Council debate. So it's not whether you should be circumcised eventually. That's not really the question. It's, do you have to be circumcised in order to become part of this faith that we call Christianity, or the faith called Judaism? The answer was no. All right. And so they had to swear against idolatry and look at the things that they're to abstain from. All right, idols. Well, that's clearly idolatry, right? You shall have no other gods before me. You shall no more offer their sacrifices to demons, a statute forever. So no idols, no sexual immorality, which was very much in line with what was happening in the pagan temples. All right, it was all over, rampant. Started with Inanna in ancient Sumer, and then you see Isis in ancient Egypt. You come to Ishtar in ancient Akkadian, in ancient Babylon as well. Eventually, this becomes Semiramis in the Canaanite traditions. Then you come to Astarte in later Canaanite traditions, Astarte or Ashtoret, another pronunciation. You have Aphrodite in the Greek tradition. You have Lady Libertas in the Roman tradition, etc. And so give that up. and this was what happening is that you'd go to the temple, you would then pay your whatever money you wanted to give, and then you were entering into this holy rite with this temple prostitute. And it wasn't prostitution, all right? You weren't just paying for sex. No, you were doing something for the gods, all right? And that's what was considered to be part of the pagan temple. So clearly, give up your paganism. This is all about paganism. And then things strangled. Again, this is straight from the Torah. Don't do this. This is what the pagans would do. They would eat blood. And don't eat blood. So don't eat things strangled because it's packing in the blood. And of course, just don't eat blood. Right? This is what pagans would do. And so here you have the Jerusalem Council saying, don't do these things. All right, so let's then think about our text that's in question. What is Paul getting at in 1 Corinthians chapter 7? Was anyone called while circumcised? Let him not become uncircumcised. So we really have a question of Jew versus Gentile. Circumcised are the Jews. Let him not become uncircumcised. All right. So maybe you became a Jew. You underwent this process. Well, don't try to undo that. Was anyone called while uncircumcised? Let him not be circumcised. So again, it's not that circumcision is something that you should or should not do, because clearly God says to Abraham, okay, now get circumcised, right? He says that in Genesis chapter 17. But where does Abraham believe God and it's accounted to him as righteousness? Where is that? In Genesis chapter 15. Genesis chapter 15. So a whole 2 chapters, which is many, many years before he believes God without any circumcision. And God's like, okay, I'm going to count that as righteousness. So that's Paul's argument, that Abraham came to faith. He came to this relationship with God while uncircumcised. So what I think happens is, thousands of years now removed from this question, we're asking, well, does this mean I don't have to be circumcised? Well, no, insofar as you want to become part of this thing called Christianity. All right, you just come as you are, and then you'll get some on-the-job training. All right, you'll get on-the-job training. Another question: do I have to be baptized in order to be saved? Well, no, of course not. But should you be baptized? Well, yeah, because Jesus said you should. Obviously, the apostles said you should. So it's not that you have to be baptized in order to be part of this, but you should be baptized. You're expressing this belief. It's not baptism that saves you, but didn't the Lord say to be baptized? Yes. Right. And the Lord also said to be circumcised. So I believe that we should be circumcised, because not to be saved, not to earn points with God, or, man, if I'm not circumcised, I'm in big trouble. Well, no, but I want to be part of the Abrahamic covenant. That's what I want to be part of. And so I want to be part of this people group. And so I'm not doing it to try to earn my salvation. I'm not doing it in order that I can be saved. I can come as I am and be saved because of God's grace. And then circumcision is simply a matter of obedience at some time when the Lord really gives that conviction. So great question. Great question.